What's going on, guys? Here's Johnny. As I said in a previous video, seasons 2 and 3 are considered to be the absolute best of SpongeBob. And yeah, it turned out to be true for season 2, because it got such a high score. But what about season 3? I put my nostalgia goggles away, rewatched the whole season, and I have some things to tell you guys. So let's get started. As always, I'm using my trusty tier list, and at the very end of the video, it's gonna get converted to numbers, so we can do some comparisons. And of course, this is all just my opinion. If you disagree with me, it's completely fine. Let me know in the comment section what do you think. We are starting on a high note. The algae is always greener. I must say, one of my favorite science fiction concepts. Switching universes, or rather lives. I quite like how Plankton struggles with being the owner of the Krusty Krab, focusing on Krabby Patties instead. But I don't quite like SpongeBob's behavior here. But I guess it's fine since it's a different universe SpongeBob. And fight with crabs was also cool. It is S tier. SpongeGuard on duty is also a cool episode. Pretty chill in the first half. I honestly like the beach atmosphere, but the second half is definitely funnier. I actually like SpongeBob's paranoia, but perhaps he treated people a bit too harsh. Nonetheless, it's still an S tier episode. Club SpongeBob. Alright guys, this is the first major stinker. I'll be honest, I absolutely dislike how Squidward is treated here. Also, SpongeBob and Patrick's behavior is just awful. They are so annoying. This is a Squidward torture episode, just like they are in season 4 or 6. I absolutely hate that magic conch shell. Well, you could say Squidward deserved that for being mean at the beginning of the episode, but no. SpongeBob and Patrick started it all. It goes to the lowest, D tier. My Pretty Seahorse. Not gonna lie, the plot is kinda touching. I like the interactions between SpongeBob and Mystery, and how he tries to hide her. Jokes are great, especially the onion one, and it's overall entertaining. It goes in the S tier. Come on, how can we not like Just One Bite? I think we all have been in a situation like Squidward before. We all made a show and then we regretted it. It's very relatable and easily goes to the S tier. By the way, the animation on Krabby Patties is so good, it makes me so hungry. The bully is also pretty cool, maybe not for people who have been bullied. Yeah, I can understand that, the atmosphere doesn't give any comforts. But for the episode itself, I think it's kinda bizarre to see SpongeBob in real danger. I think this is the first time. I think it goes in the S tier because it depicts the situation pretty well. And I like the ending twist when it's revealed that SpongeBob is invulnerable to the hits. Nasty Patty is great. I love the overall dark and paranoid theme. It really has the tension, and it kept me at the edge of my seat. It's easy S tier episode. I prefer the second half over the first half, but it's pretty awesome from start to finish nonetheless. Idiot Box. So let me introduce you to something that will be a recurring theme throughout the season. Let's call it the season 3 problem. It means that some episodes just take place in one location, have scenes that just drag for so long, and have running gags that get very old very quickly. And I can't put such episodes in S tier. The highest they can go is A tier. Unless the humor is outstanding. So here we just have SpongeBob and Patrick taunting Squidward. Takes place in mostly one location, and definitely has too much imagination. Yeah, this one is only A tier. So Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4 is a much better episode than the previous ones about them. Yes! And they don't really appear that much here. SpongeBob and his misadventures with the belt are pretty cool to watch. I like this superpower concept. And I love how he ended up just shrinking everything. Episode goes in the S tier. Doing Time is another of all-time classics. It's pretty sweet that SpongeBob actually wants to free Mrs. Puff from the jail. This episode has a lot of dark humor that I absolutely enjoy. Like Mrs. Puff slowly losing her mind, or that real-life reference, and some other great jokes as well. But one thing that always bugged me is that weird tube they are falling in. I get it. It was meant to be a sky, but just like in No Free Rides, it looks just jarring. Snowball Effect, just like Idiot Box, it suffers from similar problems. Mostly one location, and scenes that just drag a bit too long. But this one has a bit more humor to it. And I love how ultimately Squidward enjoys the fight, even if he is just left alone there. It goes in the A tier. Unfortunately, the Season 3 problems are kinda noticeable here. One Krabs Trash is hilarious from start to finish basically. I like all the attempts by Mr. Krabs trying to get that hat from SpongeBob, and later the fight at the cemetery. Easy S-tier episode, I must say. I also have to say that, again, with all these great episodes, there isn't much to say. They're just enjoyable and explaining every joke would be lame. I have a feeling that future seasons will kinda break it. As seen on TV, also great humor. How SpongeBob thinks he became a star. But also, this is what holds the episode back a bit. Yeah, I am not a fan of SpongeBob's behavior here. He's way too overconfident here, which makes him a bit annoying. But as I said, there are tons of funny stuff here, which balances it out to being an A-tier episode. Can you spare a dime? Another great episode, what can I say? It's one of all-time classics, and for a good reason. I like all the interactions between SpongeBob and Squidward. Both those good ones and these bad ones later on. Especially how Squidward starts demanding everything, and all the interactions at the very beginning of the episode at the Krusty Krabs are very cool too. S tier. Very good from start to finish. No Weenies Allowed, even if it pretty much takes place mostly in one location, it's not bothering me at all. Because I like how they are using it. Watching all these creative ways SpongeBob tries to walk into the bar is very fun to watch. The overall atmosphere is very good. It goes in the S tier. Speaking of great atmosphere, Squilliam Returns creates an awesome one. Squidward trying to be better than Squilliam makes sense, and it always surprised me how he and SpongeBob were actually able to pull it off, obviously before SpongeBob destroyed it all. I pretty much love everything in this episode. The beginning, how they prepare the Krusty Krab, all the scenes in SpongeBob's mind, and the actual Krusty Krab restaurant itself. Man, many of this episode would go in the S+ tier if it existed. I am not sure if in Krab Borg the second half drags a bit too long, when they interrogate Mr. Krabs. Maybe just a bit, but it really doesn't matter. The setup here is amazing. Makes sense that SpongeBob would be scared after watching a movie, and I like how all the coincidences made Mr. Krabs look like a robot. And everything is just taped with great jokes in general. Although, I really felt sorry for Mr. Krabs at the very end. So I love how SpongeBob and Patrick become parents here and do all that stereotypical parent stuff. I must say, it was really lovely to watch. They even nail their argument with humor towards the end of the episode. And I just love what Patrick's job turned out to be. Obviously, that's S tier. And crying of that clam doesn't bother me at all. Wet Painters doesn't suffer from the being in one location problem because the humor rescues it. And I must say, whoever drew the backgrounds, kudos to them. They did so many details here. The episode looks beautiful. And of course, all the conflicts here are just hilarious. Easy S tier, yet again. Krusty Krab training video. It's just a parody of video tutoring for employees. And I think they made a pretty good job on it. S tier. Good humor, and it actually teaches you some stuff about the workplace. How you should behave and keep everything clean and all of that. There isn't really much depth to this episode other than just parodying a schooling video. And personally, I don't think it was necessary to produce this episode. But I guess if anybody was curious how it would look like, well, here's your answer. So people seem to dislike Party Pooper Pants just because SpongeBob was kinda mean to people with his schedule for a few times. And that's it. Guys, that's a stupid reason to dislike the whole episode. There's a lot of good humor, good gags and jokes. Not to mention the party atmosphere just building up throughout the whole thing. There's way more to like in this episode than to dislike. So please, stop calling it bad. SpongeBob may be a little bit annoying with his schedule, but he gets his comeuppance. It could be an S tier, but I'm personally not a party guy, so it only goes in the A tier. Chocolate with nuts. First off, why do people think that screaming fish is funny? It isn't. It's kinda annoying actually, but that's pretty much my only complaint about the episode. I like how SpongeBob and Patrick get scanned by that one fish, and all the jokes with them trying to sell the chocolate in general. A lot of good stuff here, but that screaming guy kinda holds it back. It's A tier. So Mermaid Man and Barnacle 5 is my favorite of all of them so far. I kinda like movies about superheroes and movies about characters with their wacky powers in general on their wacky adventures, so it's no wonder I like this episode. I also like how Barnacle Boy becomes a villain and why he does that, and I like the design of Mermaid, not to mention the main action takes place during night, which makes every superhero battle much better. It's action-packed, it's silly, it's S tier. New Student Starfish is pretty cool. It's pretty weird to see Patrick at school, but it's also funny to see him making SpongeBob not being a good noodle. It doesn't bother me that they become enemies, because that leads to a very cool rescue at the very end of the episode. It goes in the S tier. Honestly, I don't think the Season 3 problem applies here, even if it could. Jokes or gags are just too awesome. Maybe Mr. Krabs' crying dragged a bit too long, but at least they used some funny visuals. It's S tier. I love the overall humor here, as well as I love the setting on the boat and in the middle of the sea, and how Mr. Krabs can control the clam with just music. So this episode exists? Why? What's the point? At least, why did they make it 22 minutes instead of just regular 11 minutes? I guess it's kinda cool to see the prehistoric life, but I stopped caring pretty much after the first minute. Patchy stuff is more entertaining than the actual episode, but I don't really count him in my ratings. It goes in the C tier. It's a cool concept, I guess, but an 11-minute version would have been a better idea. I don't really care about this episode, and I think it was really unnecessary. So this one is another of these episodes that people seem to dislike. But honestly, I think that isn't true as well. So the biggest problem people are having is SpongeBob overtraining Gary, and later the montage of him just getting broken and crashing. Yeah, it is a bit graphic, but come on, it's not that bad. I honestly think people are just overhating it, just for the last part. The whole episode is actually filled with good jokes and funny lines. The Formula 1 crashing reference is actually pretty cool. Well, to me at least. As I said many times, I like dark humor, so I guess that's why I think it's not that bad. Alright, Gary being overtrained will not let this episode go in the S tier, but it doesn't deserve to be any lower than in A tier. Most of this episode is good, don't be so dramatic. Now this episode is awesome, it made me laugh so many times. Great jokes and lines, and the fact that the second half takes place during the nighttime, it's perfect in almost every aspect. S tier. But how did they get away with that panty-right stuff? That was the most random thing ever, especially that it was about Mama Krabs, but also probably the funniest moment ever. Born Again Krabs is almost the same in terms of entertainment. It's so bizarre to see Mr. Krabs not being cheap, in a positive sense. It almost feels like a continuation to the previous episode. But I find it a bit weird that Mr. Krabs thought that was a dream, even if it was stated that he doesn't think this way. Oh well, he's just a minor inconvenience, nothing huge. It was funny how he later turned cheap again. This episode goes in the S tier. I almost wanted to put this episode with others about the Season 3 problem, but I changed my mind. SpongeBob's condition makes sense to put him in this mental state, and all the gags how Sandy and Patrick tried to entertain him were really cute. And of course, there's the ending. What were they thinking? They probably just said, screw it, we're doing the most random thing ever. S tier. Krabby Land is kinda cute. Mr. Krabs had a good idea of stealing money out of children, and it was hilarious when he revealed the Krabby Land was just a pile of junk. But on the other side, this episode doesn't really entertain me as much as the others. I feel like Mr. Krabs went a bit too far with wanting the money. But I guess the montage of SpongeBob getting hurt was kinda funny, and the ending was positive. Far from being bad, it lands in the A tier. The camping episode. You know what I'm going to say. The Season 3 problem. Sitting in one place, repeating jokes and scenes when Sea Bear attacks Squidward. But unlike the others, this one does not go in the A tier, because it takes place during the nighttime. As I said in the previous video, episode that takes place during the nighttime automatically gets one tier higher. Without it, yeah, it would be totally an A tier episode, even with all the good jokes and humor. I am not a fan of that campfire song, but totally a fan of these sea bears and what not to do to attract them. So this is the absolute king of the Season 3 problem, which is basically one scene repeated over and over in the second half. And then there's one very long scene in one place in the dumpster. This is why in my opinion, it just cannot go in the S tier. Nonetheless, it still has some humor and gags to back it up, so it goes in the A tier. The atmosphere at the very beginning in the bar and when they're later cut back to it was very cool though. Plankton's army is great! I love how Plankton imagined other Planktons to be masterminds in everything, but turned out to be pretty much hillbillies. But how they joined forces together was really sweet. And the twist at the very end with the Plankton meat was really awesome. S tier, very fun to watch. Sponge who could fly. So first off, I didn't really count patchy segments because for me they are kinda meh. But in this episode they were kinda entertaining and fun to watch when Patchy was on his little adventure. That reminded me of some movies I watched when I was a kid. But we all know there's one major flaw, the walk cycle. Why is it there? Why does it take a minute? It's just so stupid and time wasting. So bad. But for the episode itself, it's really fun to watch. Again, because SpongeBob wanted to fulfill his dreams. And how people suddenly become very mad at him was pretty funny as well. And the songs are cool. The episode is fun and entertaining, besides that walk cycle. It's S tier. SpongeBob meets the Strangler is hilarious. How they set it up and how everybody fears the Strangler. And how Strangler pretty much gets stalled by SpongeBob. It's S tier, but I don't think SpongeBob would be in danger, especially how he could withstand the hits from the bully. I think if he tried to strangle SpongeBob, he would be fine. He would just absorb it and that's it. And pranks a lot. Honestly, this is another wonderful end of the season. They obviously went on a fantasy side here, since invisible sprays don't exist. But they make a very good use of it. I like all the gags with them pretending to be ghosts, and everything that happens at the Krusty Krab is just glorious. We once again end in the S tier. Awesome, so we finish another season. So how does it look like? We have 27 episodes in the S tier, 8 episodes in A tier, 0 episodes in B tier, and 1 episode in C and D tiers. The maximum possible score for Season 3 is 185 points. Season 3 scored 170 points, which is 91.8%, which means it's almost as good as Season 2. So it is true after all. These two seasons truly are the classics, even after all these years, which means it also goes in the S tier, but behind the Season 2. When it comes to my feelings about it, yeah, this season was very enjoyable. But it's obviously slightly worse than Season 2. And obviously, compared to Season 1, it's definitely much better. I think Season 3 is a little less dynamic, as I said multiple times in this video. There are a lot of one-location episodes and so many things that repeat themselves. And honestly, the colors look kinda off. They are slightly darker and less vibrant compared to Season 2. And SpongeBob's character slightly changed. Not to mention everybody got slight design changes. But hey, every season has its own style. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. Alright, so this is everything for this video today. See you in the next one.